Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I would first like to remind you to please turn off your cell phones. My name is Matt Lee, and I am one of the presidents of Speak Out. On behalf of Speak Out, I would like to welcome you to the 2014 Fall Communication Conference. Speak Out, which is the Communication Studies Club here on campus, has worked side by side with the Business and Professional Communication class to produce everything that you see before you today. Our two faculty advisors are Linda Seppa-Salisbury and Amy Farrow. Please join me in giving them a round of applause for spearheading this effort. For the last 7 weeks, we've been planning, marketing, designing, and coordinating this event. And trust me, I am not exaggerating when I say that thousands of hours have gone into producing this conference. And it has finally come together. What a beautiful day. In the spirit of this year's conference, I would like to thank the faculty that supports student clubs like Speak Out, namely Conan Campbell, Mary Charles, Bruce Steele, Gordon Grant, Diane Oberst, and the Associated Student Government. Without faculty support, we could not do what we do. Thank you. Just so everyone knows, we are videotaping the speakers, and their workshops will be available on YouTube within the next few days. So don't worry if you're like the rest of us and can't be in two places at once. We've got you covered. It's now time for me to introduce my advisor, so please join me in giving a warm welcome to the amazing and wonderful Linda Seppa-Salisbury.
It is not an exaggeration to say that we are thrilled to have you here this morning. And we'll have several welcomes and then we'll get right down to it with our wonderful Grace Leaf. It is my honor this morning to introduce someone whose impact on this campus is felt in every corner. With the faculty, both adjunct and full-time, with classified staff, with maintenance, with administration, Dr. Rebecca Rhodes.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, that was lame. Let's try it again. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Are you all ready for a great morning today? Yes. This is one of the most attended events that we put on for staff and students at Spokane Community College, and I'm so excited that you have taken time from classes and from your offices to come and attend. So I just want to keep my welcome short because no one likes to hear suits. But can I get a raise of hands of everyone who's a student currently at SCC? All right. How about staff or faculty? Okay. And then how about everybody who's going to take classes winter quarter? Is that everybody? Because if you're not already a student or working here, you should be, right? And we're here to help you get started. So with that, I just want to welcome you to Spokane Community College. Thank you for participating in this amazing event. And I'm going to let Linda get the show on the road.
We love surprises. And I want to thank President Morgan for moving his administrative meeting up. We have something for you. And this is a new award that we're giving from the faculty, from the students, and it's called the Spirit of SCC. Your positive attitude makes our day, November 2014, from Spokane Community College. This lady does everything from register people to send emails to adjunct faculty. She is the spirit of this school. So many other people are like this too, but who is walking the walk and not just talking the talk is Dr. Rebecca Rhodes. Would you please stand up and thank her? She had no idea. It was nice to have you welcome, but you know what? That was tricky, wasn't it? So it's also my honor to introduce a longtime friend. Grace Leaf, what a perfect name for a fall conference. Can you believe it? Somebody said, did you guys plan that? I said, of course. But we'd have her anytime, any season. We have been friends and colleagues for years here. Many of you probably had her as a counselor. She worked in development and training at the district office. And she has credentials that I could be up here for a long, long time to share. What I love most about her is her authenticity and her transparency and the love and passion that she puts forward in everything that she does. And we're just so, so blessed to have her here this morning. I just want to give you one little moment for me with Grace. I called some years back and got her voicemail message. And it said, "Hi, this is Grace. How may I serve you?" I couldn't even speak, so I hung up. And then I called back and I said, "Oh my gosh, how may I serve you?" What a wonderful way to greet people on the phone. I still have every thank you note you've ever written me. So please welcome. We're so, so happy to have her here, Grace Leaf, to teach you about the Bible.
Okay, some smart person put a box of Kleenex right here for me today, and I guess I'm going to start using it right away. First thing I want to do is take a picture of this beautiful crowd, because you are amazing. And when I do my nightly gratitude reflection, you will figure largely in it. Thank you for the warm welcome. A lot of times when I speak, it's about the scholarly research that I do, because I'm ABD, which means all but dissertation, in a PhD in leadership. And I've been ABD for the last 15 years. So probably a high P on the Myers-Briggs, meaning you can just leave things open-ended for a long time. And if you take any of Linda or Amy's classes, you'll know what that means. But today I'm actually going to get really personal and share a spiritual practice that I do as part of my daily ritual. And I'm going to talk about my story and how I came to my gratitude practice. So here's a picture that I found 6 weeks ago in a very dirty box in my garage of the stuff that I collected from my 87-year-old adopted mother who was moved into an assisted living because of dementia. And I didn't know that I had any kids' pictures because I was adopted at age 6.5. And so all those things that you do that you take for granted in schools where they say, bring a childhood picture or a baby photo, I never had that luxury because I didn't know photos of me existed. So then when I encountered this photo, it was like this big find. I found the Holy Grail to my past. And it's about circa 1971 or 2, so I'd be 4 or 5 years old. And I actually have a memory of my life pre-adoption, and this is my oldest cousin. And so this was a happy time. I remember playing with her and her teaching me how to play the piano. But if you know anything about society in Korea, even though they are highly modernized and a very successful capitalist society, they don't have a social safety net. And if your mother is single, like mine was, because she left a violently alcoholic marriage and chose safety for us in a culture that looks down upon that. So we were left to fend for ourselves, ultimately. And a year after this, we would become homeless. So my mom actually worked very menial jobs, housekeeping. Back in the 70s and 80s, if you ever saw a garment that said made in Korea, I always wondered if maybe my mom had sewed that. So that was the life that I led from age 4 to 6.5, was a street life, finding places to live, staying home by myself. Thank God there wasn't CPS over there because they would have surely taken me away. But but my mom had to leave me to fend for myself so that she could go and work and make a living. This is the one artifact that I brought back with me that I remember bringing with me to my new home. And it's a rice bowl and a kimchi bowl, and it's stainless steel. So every day before my mom left, she would fill this with rice. And she would say, when you get hungry, you can eat out of it. So I would play mind games with it, try to wait it out, and see how long I could last. So that is how I spent my days of same endlessness, day after day. But every day, I was very grateful when I was actually able to take part, because it was literally a life-giving bowl. So I have this out in my house to remind me of the life that was, but it also set a great foundation for my daily gratitude practice. And I had the good fortune of being adopted to two teacher parents who loved to read and valued scholarship. So if we have time later, I can give you a tour of my spiritual advisors, and most of the people on this page are the people that are scholars, philosophers, teachers, mystics, and scientists who have shaped my spiritual practice and my definition of gratitude. So some of the notable ones, of course, in the center is Parker Palmer, and he's written lots of books about the inner life of professionals. And as a scholar in organizations, I'm very interested in studying what happens to people when we're living dynamic change and chaos in organizations, because we still are human beings with a finite capacity and we need to nurture our soul. So that's one of the people that have influenced my gratitude practice. And the Indian man there is not Deepak Chopra. It's actually Father Anthony DeMello, and he wrote a book called Awareness, and he talks about living every day as if it were your last, so that you can be grateful for the goodness that is before you. So all of these folks I have read and written about and hopefully taken on a cellular level into my being so that it informs my daily gratitude practice. There are thousands of books and thousands of definitions of gratitude. So this is Grace Leaf's version. It's the kind of the universal summary of all of those things that I've read. Gratitude is a way of being and moving through the world with a sense of abundance that allows the ordinary to be embraced as extraordinary. So in my title, I talk about living well, and I'm not talking about hashtag best ever like we do on Facebook, or how everyone overuses the word epic. Everything's epic. This is going to be an epic movie. I'm talking about that inner groundedness that you get when you are actually connected with what's happening in front of you and in your circumstance, that you feel that sense of wow. And it's a sense of awe for the everyday. And that's something that takes practice to get to, but thankfully I am actually able to feel that every day, and it took a lifetime of doing to get there. So some of you who may be skeptical about the mystics and the ancient wisdom traditions, I now have science as evidence for you why gratitude is good for you. The Center for the Science for the Greater Good at UC Berkeley, they study the effects of gratitude on societies, on school children, on families, and their whole mission is to measure in a skeptical world what gratitude does for people individually and on a biochemical level. So practicing and expressing gratitude changes your brain chemistry. It really does. It increases your immune response, it lowers your blood pressure, and it lowers your cholesterol, and all of those other biometrics that society likes to measure all the time. So they have done rigorous studies about the impact of practicing gratitude, and in big cities and in schools, and they're taking that message and doing an anti-bullying campaign in schools because kids need to live and feel gratitude so that they grow up to be wonderful human beings. And so there is hope on the scientific front, and there is evidence that gratitude is good for us. So here's my systems model of gratitude. What gratitude is not the event itself, but we cannot control all the events in our lives. I could not control us being homeless or being adopted out. But what we do have control is the next step, and that is the meaning that we assign to the event, which in turn elevates and promotes a good attitude, and that changes our being from the cellular level on up, and then it changes our perspective of future events. So then you can take a vicious cycle where you take an event and say, life sucks, and generalize, and become the victim in your circumstance, and turn it into a virtuous cycle where you say, my choice is in the meaning making and how I encounter my circumstance. So the steps that I have in terms of meaning making comes from a lot of scholars, and it's about naming and claiming your experience. As I look out in the audience today, I know you are living with a lot of hurt. Some of you are anxious about where your next meal is going to come from, and will your financial aid check take you to the end of the quarter? Are your children going to be okay in school? Those are all things that you can claim to be your experience, and you can own those. And then the next step is to feel your feelings, to identify that yes, I have anger and anxiety and hopelessness and powerlessness. Because that's really important in the human experience, is to be emotion coach, not only for others, but for yourself. So that self-talk of acknowledging where you are emotionally is the first step in healing and letting go of your negative experiences. Angela, I knew that you were going to come up here and be a volunteer for me. I want to demonstrate, and this is attachment theory in a nutshell. Hang on to this. Say this is your negative emotion, and I say, just let it go. Get over it. Buck up, bucko. What happens? You're attached to it even more. You cling to it. And attachment theorists tell us that if we acknowledge the negative emotion and say, you know what? I know you're holding on to those negative emotions. You're angry, and you're sad, and you're anxious. And I'm going to sit here with you and feel those for a while and let you have those feelings. Then they're able to relax and let go of them. So if you see people who are attached to their negative feelings, it's because someone prematurely probably told them, get over it, or buck up, or you got to have a positive attitude, because timing is everything. Thank you. And actually, as a gift, Angela, I got that in the New York Street Fair, so my compliments. I knew she was going to be here, so that was kind of planned. So the third step is stepping into the intentional practice of seeing goodness in the fullness of life. And what that means is you do acknowledge there's a paradox, that there is good and bad in your life, and there are forces that you cannot control, and things do make you feel bad. But this is the time where you embrace that paradox and you say, I choose to see the goodness, because if I'm going to experience, the Greek word is pleroma, which means the fullness of time. If I'm going to experience pleroma, then I need to experience both good and bad, and then choose to live with the good and allow that to be my teacher. one of my teachers, Dr. Viktor Frankl, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he was imprisoned in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. And he was a psychologist before he was taken prisoner, and he actually practiced therapy in the concentration camps. And so, you know, from a scholar standpoint, what a rich place for research, because he noticed people who held on to the meaning of life and were grateful to be awake, even in those really stark conditions where people were deliberately starving them, and they were cold and hungry, and they woke up and they had a purpose every day and they could make meaning. And so he went on to found a school of psychology called logotherapy. And after he was released from the concentration camps, he wrote a lot about his experience and transformed his experience into something purposeful for others so that they could learn. And he said, everything can be taken from a man but one thing. The last of the human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So when you see a fork in the road before you, like these two paths, then you intentionally say, I'm going to choose the path of goodness and gratitude and make something of each day because it is a gift. And that's the lesson that Dr. Frankl taught us through logotherapy. So in my practice, it's not just enough to reflect on what I'm grateful for every day, but it's the next step to express it. And that increases relationship and deepens a connection with the other. And some of my beloved others are not here physically close to me, so I get to use all of the media at hand, and you can too. They've actually done studies now about how mood is contagious on Facebook and social media. So if you choose to use that as a medium of expressing gratitude, you know that you can make a difference just by the words that you put out there, because words are very powerful. So you can express gratitude in person. And a little recipe that our positive psychologists tell us is, rather than saying attributes about the person, you notice something about their effort or their doing so that they can continue to do more of it. So when you're expressing gratitude in person, I want to express gratitude to speak out as an example. And that is, I noticed everyone was busily preparing this space to make it welcoming, and it felt like Thanksgiving when I walked in the building. And I heard Matt say, let's round up and get together and have a staff meeting. And really what that was about, it was a preamble, getting their space and their mind so that they could welcome you and co-create this holding environment so we can learn together today. So speak out. I want you to know that I noticed and I'm grateful. You can also text, because how many times have we read about on BuzzFeed 10 awful ways to break up with somebody via text? Well, let you be the authors of the 10 great ways to show gratitude and express it over your texts. And social media. Everybody, except for maybe Linda, is LinkedIn everywhere. And I know we have opposing views on social media, but it's because we have different experiences about it. So we honor both, and there's a place for both. And I just want to know that, I want you to know that I know social media is here to stay. So you have the power to make it your instrument of good. And of course, the all-powerful handwritten note. And David Steindl-Rast says that gratefulness is the heart of prayer. So I like to think that every time I write a handwritten note, that you are praying not only for that person, but for your relationship. And so that's the power of a thank you note. So here's an example of a LinkedIn thank you note that I received recently. Dave Jensen is a world-renowned leadership author and speaker, and he was one of our TEDx Spokane speakers a month ago here in Spokane when we did a TED event. And he talked about living with paradox, both the good and the bad. So I wrote a thank you note to him because it was a very powerful message to me, and it helped me prepare for this space and to be with you here today. So he shot off an email in LinkedIn and said, thanks for your nice note. So that's how you perpetuate this virtuous cycle and deepen relationship. This is a simple bowl of soup, but it's one that my husband brought to me yesterday because I wasn't feeling well. And unbidden, he brought me a bowl of pho. So my way of gratitude and giving him a shout out was to put it on Facebook because he's a very quiet, unassuming person and he hates that. But he's starting to recognize that. For me, words of affirmation is one of my love languages. And for him, acts of service is a love language. So I want to acknowledge that he's living his love language through acts of service. Came by, did a drive-by soup, and then left. This is my son, Ben. And I just returned Monday at midnight from seeing him in 5 performances of Stephen Sondheim's Assassins. So I flew Friday, and I sat through 5 performances, and it's a culmination of our family lab. So John Gottman, he founded the Love Lab, where he studied lots of people and relationships and how communication works. And so I lovingly lifted that term, Love Lab, and put it to our family. So everything that we learned from John Gottman, we put into practice in our family. So before he could be on this stage as a 21-year-old at NYU as a lead in Assassins, we went to the bookstore and he didn't say a word. This was 2 hours before the show. He could have taken a nap. He could have gone to coffee with his friends. But we went and got thank you cards, and he sat for an hour and wrote a thank you note to every single cast member. And that is something he has done as a ritual process every show that he's been in. And that's saying a lot because he has been the lead since he was age 7 in some kind of play or another, and sometimes up to 5 shows a year. And this is something we started before he could even form words with his pencil, is that I would put a packet of thank you notes in the Christmas stocking, even when he was 3 and 4 and couldn't even shape letters. And after we opened presents, we would sit down and write thank you notes to the people who gave us presents. And so that spiritual practice began at a very early age, and it was ingrained in him so much so that I knew exactly where he was going before the show. We didn't even have to talk about it. So here it is, outside this building. There are sirens blaring and homeless people sitting on the street and students rushing by, and he created this hour of stillness so that he could be with his cast and write and tell them what he noticed about their creative process and their preparation and how their work had deepened his own knowledge as a performer. So he did that to every single person, and then he went and got ready for the show. So that is part of the creative process, and that's part of the ritual process. And so that is how gratitude is manifesting in my life and in my family's life, because we have made it an intentional activity every single day. So he actually said to me before I left, "Mom, make sure you bring a ton of thank you notes before my senior recital in December." So my carry-on will probably have 2 pairs of jeans, and 5 or 6 boxes of thank you notes, and a good pen, because he stole my favorite pen when he did this. So to me, this is a living, breathing example of success in parenthood, because I have passed on the practice of gratitude to a person who now lives it and models it for his classmates and his cast members. And then we also have built in another gratitude ritual. Every time we fly, we text each other and give a status report. So it'll be, we're boarding, or we've landed, and we always say, we love you. And it didn't take 9/11 to get us to do that, because as one of the planes was going down, they luckily had cell phones, and they called their families and said, I love you, before they took on the hostages, or the hostage takers. So this is something that we do that is so small, it takes a nanosecond to take your phone and say, I love you, I'm boarding. And that happens every time we travel. So that is our way of extending traveling mercies to one another. And we feel like that we're connected even when we're incommunicado for those 4 long hours without cell phone service on the airplane. You can live through it, believe me. You can live 4 hours without cell phone connection. I also want to point out what gratitude is not. So we've kind of defined what it looks like in practice, but I want to share what it's not. And this is from science and also the ancient mystics. What it isn't is labeling. So we have studies on parenting and leadership studies on productivity that say that if you label your employee or your child, even if you think it's positive when you're expressing gratitude, it has the opposite effect. It paralyzes them. Unless it's coupled with, I noticed that you did this, or this is what I'm appreciating about your work. So if you just say, you are so smart, that poor student is now paralyzed. And if they don't think that they can measure up to that label, they withdraw or they sabotage themselves. So it's a really tricky process to be able to express gratitude in a way that will make their trajectory and their performance go in the right direction. So rather than labeling a person a universal adjective like smart, say, I noticed that you spent 3 hours studying for the test, and I'm wondering how that effort worked for you. And they can report that they feel smart or they got a good grade. And that is the affirming expression of gratitude that avoids labeling. Vague. So I had a boss that used to say, oh man, you're a rock star. You're killing it. And he would say that to everybody like he had a spray gun. And bullets would fly out that said, you're killing it, you're a rock star. And it would ring hollow, because what that, or the person's intent or effort that they put into doing something. And shame-based. If you want to know about how to rid shame from your life, read Brené Brown, because she studies that. And we can get caught in these shame spirals. And it can even manifest when we're trying to express gratitude. So something like this, considering it's you and all, that was a good job. So there's a backhanded compliment if I ever heard one. Or considering their circumstances. So anything that's shame-based, saying you are not enough, and I'm going to put conditions on this expression of gratitude. We want to turn that around and say, you did an amazing job, and here's what I saw about your effort today. And I know a lot of people, when they hear, have a positive attitude, express gratitude, they think it's so cliche because they've been beaten over the head with, way to go, you're awesome. And that is cliche. So avoiding that, and again, focusing on the relationship and the process and the outcome that you see happening in front of that person. And hammer. Okay, so and anybody who knows me knows that I always have a parenting soapbox. So today is no exception. So if I hear a parent say, "What do you say?" and shame a child into thanking someone out of guilt and because they should, you are setting that child up for a lifetime of not wanting to say thank you and hiding from that expression of gratitude because they will associate that encounter with, oh, if I say thank you, then I have to feel less than. So the way to go about teaching children how to say thank you is to model it and do it together and be a partner in the expression of gratitude by saying, oh, look, Aunt Linda gave us a toy. We are so happy we get to play with it today. Let's say thank you together. And then you bring that child into a partnership and they want to grow into that gratitude journey with you. And it becomes internalized and it becomes authentic rather than, Mommy's going to yell at me if I don't say thank you. And then I'm going to go run off and play. And if Mommy's not around, I'm going to forget to say it because I feel really bad when that happens. So if you eliminate anything from your vocabulary, parents and grandparents, please do not shame your child into saying, what do you say? Say, oh, let's say thank you together. Be on the gratitude walk with your child. Here's an example of positive social media. One of our former colleagues here, Dr. Jim Moore, for an entire year, and this is before a movement happened on Facebook, so we were texting last night and he was ahead of his time, as usual. For every day for a year, he posted something that he was grateful for. And that takes discipline and intention. And every day I would eagerly get on and see, what is it that he's thankful for today? And it would make me reflect on what I was thankful for. So this is his summative statement. After a year of doing this, he said, oh, now that I've gotten in the habit of doing this, I'm going to continue to do it as the Spirit moves me. I won't post it necessarily, but it's become a central part of my daily practice. And he gave me permission to post it, by the way. So here's one of my favorite quotes about gratitude, and that is, the miracle of gratitude is that it shifts your perception to such an extent that it changes the world you see. So I want to do a little thought experiment with you. If you would take the next minute and think about 3 things that you're grateful for today. Now I want you to share one of those things with a neighbor. Go. see the energy in the room changed? People were smiling. I wish you could see what I could see. The energy level went up, and people were physically getting bigger. And actually, here's the thought experiment part. What does that say? What do you see? Good is now here. How many saw good is now here? How many saw good is nowhere? So this was actually an experiment where they had people write 3 gratitudes a day over time and showed them this kind of as a pre-test, post-test, before and after. And after they did the gratitude practice, they were able to see good is now here, more people than people who saw good is nowhere. So for all of you who were honest and raised your hand and saw the second one, I can guarantee you there is scientific evidence that if you move into a gratitude practice after 6 weeks, you will start to see the world differently, and where it's value neutral like this phrase, you'll be able to see good is now here everywhere, because you will be rewiring your brain. So, tips on making it a sustainable practice. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, and we all need support. So the first thing that I have is my Love Lab LAB, and that's a life advisory board. So my family is part of that, but all of those scholars and mystics and scientists that I showed you at the beginning is part of my life advisory board. So when I'm in a dark space and I want to turn to the light, I ask, what would one of those scholars tell me, or one of those teachers, or someone in my life who may serve as that? What would they talk to me about? Or I would actually physically go and talk to them. And you might recognize a face on the left-hand side, and that is Linda Seppa Salisbury. And she, whether you know it or not, has been on my life advisory board since I began here 18 years ago, because she models what it is to live gratitude in practice. And my definition was a way of being and moving through the world. And so I want to share a little story by another of my teachers on that page, Leo Buscaglia. He was an Italian immigrant who wrote lots of books about relationships. And his mother, after he would get ready to leave the house, would yell from the kitchen, "Wear your scarf!" Because she was first generation Italian. And he could not figure out, it's 90 degrees out, for God's sakes. Why is she telling me to wear my scarf? Every day without fail she would say that. And after she died, he reflected and wrote about the meaning of her life, and he realized that was her way of holding him close and telling him that she loved him. And it was a reminder that the scarf was her surrogate when he went out. It would be a way of protecting him, and her energy would be with him. So Linda, I would like to tell you, I know you have one on. It's kind of fortuitous that you're wearing pink. Wear your scarf. And the second tip is surround yourself with positive people. You cannot control the events in your life necessarily, but you can certainly control who you spend your waking hours with to a certain extent. And so if the people around you are able to model and live gratitude, it makes it easier for you to sustain your practice. And the middle picture is a picture of a positive community that I belong to. So outside of my 2 jobs, I actually also teach dance fitness with Jazzercise. because these people are committed to making people's lives better by having fun and listening to music and dancing, and it doesn't even feel like a workout. And right in the middle in Peach is Betsy Lawrence, who happens to teach here, and she's sitting right there, and she's also on my life advisory board, and she took me through such a dark time when I was having career issues, and she did those processes of accepting my negative emotion, allowing me to sit with it, and then letting me let it go, instead of telling me to get over it, or buck up, or there are better days ahead, or filling my head with cliches. So being with someone in that space, that's who you want to surround yourself with. And then the last picture is of my birth mom, who my half-brother, this gets complicated, so pay attention. My half-brother from another mother found me on Facebook 4 years ago. And recently, he found my birth mother in a rural village. So her sacrifice made it possible for me to stand here before you today. But this picture showed up in my Facebook messages 3 weeks ago. On a Tuesday morning, my half-brother had found her and sent me this. And we can't speak each other's languages. I don't speak Korean, and he doesn't speak redneck. So there's a language barrier. But I'm very grateful for his attempt in trying to reconnect us across the globe. And so this is the way we do it, is through pictures. So every day I try to think on 3 gratitudes, and my husband and I read to each other out of a reflection book. And that's how we do our spiritual practice, and gratitude is just one dimension of that. So I want to give you the tools and say it is possible now for you to go out and incorporate gratitude into your way of being and moving through the world. And practice doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent. So please go forth in gratitude. Thank you for your attention.